All right, what up, fam? We're here, semester 2 quiz 1 practice. Remember, this is optional, but if you are, prepared for the quiz and you're gonna do better on the quiz, and hopefully things go well for us, let's hop right to it. Find the value that completes a square and then rewrite as a perfect square. So what it wants us to do is fill in the blank. In addition to filling in the blank, it wants us to figure out what value is going to make this look like a perfect square here with the letter P. We got to figure out what goes in there. This process is called completing the square, and it's exactly the same every single time. So we're going to start with the 42. We'll divide by 2. So every single time, you're always dividing by 2 at that step. So you're taking the first number here, dividing by 2 gets you that 21. That 21 is going to get a star on it. Then you're going to square it. Remember that squaring has two different ways of looking at it. So that square, what that really means is 21 to the power of 2. That's the same thing as 21 times 21. You're multiplying it by itself. So that number, do it correctly, is 441. Feel free to use a calculator for it. No big deal. You get 441 right there, and a plus 21 there, and boom. You finish the question. That's the whole thing. That's all you got to do in this problem. By the way, that 21 in here comes from the star. And the 441 goes there. As a reminder, while you're doing this right now, if you're just watching this nice and slow, and not really, pausing and skipping around and that kind of thing, you are allowed to put every single one of these questions into your notebook and use that notebook on your quiz. So if that sounds like a good time to you, then do it. I could help you out. Solve each equation by completing the square. So these questions are very similar to the previous one because we have to complete the square. However, it does have a little bit of extra work. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move all the letters to one side and all of the not letters to the other. So the variables to the left in this case and the constants to the right. So it's going to be a -5. I'm also leaving a little bit of space because I need to complete the square. Completing the square, I'm going to do it off to the side here. I have 6 first. You divide by 2, you put a star on it, and you square. It's the same exact stuff as this step here where I'm dividing by 2 and squaring. Same exact idea. And here we're going to be adding 9. However, you have to remember, anytime you add something to one side of the equation, you must also add it to the other side of the equation. So we're going to add 9 on this side as well. When you do that, we're going to go ahead and be able to rewrite this as v plus 3 squared. As a reminder, that comes from our starred value of 3. -5 plus 9, you can kind of just combine those guys. They're like terms, and you get +4. For the very next step, I'm going to show extra work on the very first one. I will not show this work on the next ones because it's not really needed. But the idea is, just to remind you, is that the square root of x squared is always equal to the absolute value of x. Or in other words, the square root of something squared ends up canceling out. Because it cancels out completely, this is what we do on both sides of the equation. So you're going to go ahead and put that square root in. The square root of v plus 3 squared equals, and we're doing the square root of 4. Do not forget your little plus or minus sign. That little sign means it's both positive and negative, and it's because of this absolute value idea. So the square root and the square cancels out, and we end up with just v plus 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. If you did not know what the square root of 4 is, and you didn't know how to calculate the square root of 4, it's just asking what number is, when multiplied by itself, gives you 4. However, we do have a button on our calculator for it. You hit seconds first, and then x squared, and the square root will show up. And sure enough, we just get 2. Do not forget, again, that plus or minus, because it reminds us to split this into 2 separate equations. So we'll have 4 plus 3 equals 2, and 4 plus 3 equals -2. Subtract 3 on both sides, and you'll get -1. Subtract 3 on both sides, and we will get -5. Nice and easy. Here we go on to number 3. So number 3 is a little bit more annoying than the previous question. And the reason why number 3 is more annoying is because we have a 9 in front of this guy, which is going to cause problems. The first step is still the same, though. Let's move that 1 to the other side. -4 minus 1 is -5. After that, we need to divide by 9, divide by 9, divide by 9, because we need a number in front here to be a 1. So we're dividing by 9, we're dividing by 9, we're dividing by 9. When you divide all of those guys by 9, you do end up with a fraction over here. That's okay. It's okay to end up with fractions. That does happen. You get k squared plus 2k is equal to negative 5 over 9. Please leave this as a fraction. If you don't leave it as a fraction, you'll get a strange decimal. You'll round incorrectly. You'll get the wrong answer in the end. So you do need to leave it as a fraction. And then you complete the square just like normal. So completing the square just like normal, you take the 2, we divide by 2, put the star on it, square the result, you get 1 here. That 1 is going to be added to both sides of the equation. On the left-hand side, we can just go ahead and put it as that starred value there, squared equals. And on the right-hand side, we need to add fractions. So to add those fractions, let's use our calculator like we're going to have during the quiz. If you need to practice this in class, definitely ask for help. I also don't mind showing a couple of the buttons when needed on the quiz itself. But we hit alpha. Oops, where did my... Hit alpha, y equals, and then enter, and if that happens, a fraction will show up. In this case, we have negative 5 divided by 9, and we are adding 1 to it, and you'll get 4 over 9. Now, if you're somebody who would like to be able to do something like that in your head, just a reminder, all we're doing is the adding fractions makes common denominators, so 1 is the same thing as 9 divided by 9, and negative 5 plus 9 is 4, and the 9 stays the same on the bottom. After that, the very next step, just like the previous question, we're going to take the square root of both sides of the equation. I'm going to write it just once this time with the blue. Don't forget your plus or minus on that side. And when you do that on the left-hand side, the square cancels out. And on the right-hand side, you need to use your calculator to do the square root. So again, you're doing second square root, and you can hit the second button again and then hit the minus button way down here. And if you hit second minus, you get this little ANS, and that stands for answer. It's taking the previous part of the question and taking the square root of it, and you get 2 divided by 3. For students who might want to be doing this part of the question in their head, you're doing the square root of 4 and the square root of 9 separately. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. So you didn't technically need a calculator on that step necessarily. To finish the question off, we need to split it into 2 separate problems. So we have k plus 1 is equal to positive 2/3. You didn't need to write the plus sign there. And k plus 1 is equal to negative 2/3. Subtract 1 on both sides. And again, use that calculator button. I don't need to show you how to use it one more time. You'll get negative 1/3. And again, subtract 1 on both sides. And if you use your calculator correctly for it, you'll get negative 5 over 3. And those are your 2 answers. Let's finish this number 4 off where we flip it to the back side. So on this one, we have an m squared that's negative. We don't want that. So let's move it to the other side. Move that 11 around as well. So you have m squared plus 7m is equal to positive 11. And now we can do what we did in the last question. I didn't leave myself room, so I'm going to have to write it again. Whoops. So we have 7 on the side, divide by 2, and that's going to give us 7 divided by 2. Again, you do need to leave these as fractions for the most part. Technically, you could do this without, but it makes it a little bit more messy. So you put a star on that one, and then you square it. You'll get 49 over 4, and that's the number you're adding to both sides of the equation. And then we use that starred value. And here we have to add using the fraction. Here, honestly, really adding fractions is going to be easier for you. But if you wanted to do it in your head, you're doing times 4 and adding this. So 4 times 11 is 44, and 44 plus 49 is 93. So you get 93 divided by 4. Now here, when you take the square root of both sides, so you're doing, again, that square root of both sides when you do it. And you get, don't forget your plus or minus. M plus 7 over 2 is equal to plus or minus. Now the bottom is always going to come out to a perfect square. That square root of 4 is just 2. However, this is where you can't use a calculator. The reason why you can't use a calculator is if I did the square root of 93 in the calculator, just to show you what happens. square root of 93 here. I get this decimal that goes on forever and ever. Because you're going decimal going on forever and ever, no matter what number you write, it will be rounded. And we don't want to round answers if we don't have to. So we're going to write what is called the exact answer. So the exact answer has the square root of 93 in it. So you just leave it like that if your square root does not come out to be a pretty number. And it's okay to leave it like that. And actually it's less work because now you can just finalize your answer by moving the 7/2 to the other side. And you get negative 7/2 plus or minus the square root of 93/2. And you can actually just leave it like that. You don't need to do anything else. You can just have it chill. All right, let's move on to the back side. All the backside questions are review problems. So they're problems that we did much earlier in the year. Number 5, you might say, hey, that's not review. That's what we did in class the other day. No, we learned how to complete the square graph. This one's already in complete the square form. This is one where we can remember that, hey, we have the A is -2, C is -1, that guy's -2, and therefore it's that frowny face parabola that starts off at -1, -2 down here. However, I did show you guys how to use your calculator to do this nice, neat, and pretty, and I think that's what we should do, is use our calculator to make a beautiful little chart that has all of the correct coordinates so we can get a perfect picture. So we got -1, -2. Let's get some more coordinates going in our calculator. That's the only required coordinate, by the way. All the other coordinates, you need 5 total, just to make it nice and neat. So we're going to go y equals, clear off whatever you have there, and we have -2 parentheses x plus 1 squared minus 2, and then you're hitting that, I don't know why I hit graph 1 at the table. I guess we can look at what the graph looks like. And I wanted the table. So our table started off at -1. That's perfect. And it's already set up nice and neat. We can graph all these other ones right here. So -2, -4. And I'm just going to copy the rest of them. We got -3, -10. And we got 0, -4. And we have 1, -10. So we just put them all up. And that's easy enough. So -2, -4. 0, -4. And then 1, -10, and 3, -10, and you're quite literally just playing connect the dots. And that's it. Easy peasy. Number 6 and 7, factoring completely. So here, there's no completing the square for us. We have to factor it. So if you forgot how to factor, here's your reminder. We're going to take this number here on the right, and we're figuring out what two numbers are able to multiply to 45, but add to this number here for -14. So if you're able to do that in your head, that's nice, wonderful for you. If you can't, this is how we do it to the side. We write 1 times 45. That's the first thing that definitely multiplies to 45. However, we need to multiply all the things that multiply to 45. So 1 works, 2 does not, 3 does not, 4 does not, 5 does, 5 times 9, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, 8 doesn't work. 3 did work, by the way. 3 times 15. I don't know what I'm saying. So you have 1 times 45, 3 times 15, 5 times 9. All those guys are good to go. However, it is a negative here and a positive there. That only makes it that both of them are negative guaranteed. And now we have to add them up. This is -46, this one is -18, and this one is -14. So -14 is this one right here. That's what adds up. So we have -5 and -9, -5 and -9. That's our final answer. N -5 and -9. Kaboom, kaboom. Now, you're saying, hey, Mr. Richards, I don't remember how to do this. Why are you making me do this review? We just did completing the square. Could I use complete the square to get this answer? The answer is yes, actually. So the way you could do complete the square for this, by the way, this is bonus. So if you already understand it, you don't want to use complete the square, just move on to the next question. You can like kind of fast forward a little bit. But if you wanted to do the complete square to do this, this is how you could do it. Let's see. You're going to solve the equation kind of like normal. You're going to kind of put the equation equal to 0. So you're going to make this a negative 45 on there. And then you're going to do your regular completing the square, negative 14, divide by 2, put a star, squared, 49, okay, n squared minus 14n plus 49 equals negative 45 plus 49. And minus 7 squared equals 4. Square root both sides. I'm doing this fast because it's bonus, plus or minus 2, and therefore n is equal to 2 plus 7, which is 9, and negative 2 plus 7, which is 5. If you notice, it is the opposite of these two signs, so you can kind of just fill in the blank there and fill in the blank there, and this would be the factored version, so you can kind of like quote-unquote cheat your answers by using a different method, and I would give you full credit as long as you wrote it in this way. It does need to be in the n minus 5 times n minus 9 format for that problem. Anyways, back on track, we're on the number 7 here. So doing number 7 to do this factoring the normal way. 3 times 4 is 12, and you're figuring out the numbers that multiply to 12, but add to 8. So that's 1 times 12 possible, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. This is the one that adds up to 8. So we're going to rewrite that p there using those numbers. We got 3p squared plus 2p plus 6p plus 4. Then we're going to factor out that p there, and that's going to be 3p plus 2 plus factor out a 2 from these ones, 3p plus 2 and 3p plus 2. And p plus 2 is our final answer. So again, you could use the complete the square method if you really felt like it to get that problem done, but you do not have to. Pick your favorite ways. That's the end of the video. Have a wonderful rest of your day and good luck on this quiz on Friday.